All right. Hi, everybody. We are here for a Democrat and Republican walk into a bar, the live online version. And I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai,
I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman, once again coming to you live from the great beyond.
from the gates of heaven.
Yes,
He's joined us.
I have joined us straight from heaven. I'm not dead. I'm just visiting.
We have no idea why Sean is appearing to
We
us
have not figured
so white
out
and
the sliding
angelic.
issue. It is apparently a brightness setting, but I don't know how to fix it. Maybe I have to go to camera or something. But I like it. It lets me shine.
Listen, none of us here at Big Mouth Media claim to be tech experts, okay? We just
No,
do
no
the
much.
best we can. We're political experts.
Yes, that is our skill set. That is our skill set.
Well, fantastic. So we are recording this on October 20th, 2024. So we are just a little over 2 weeks
Mm,
to the last day of the election, technically, because
yep.
we've already had vote by mails go out in the state of Florida, and early
Yep.
voting starts here in Lee County tomorrow. So
Excellent. Yes.
2.5 weeks, 2 weeks and change. Sean, what do you think?
I think again, from the presidential election, it's all going to come down to Pennsylvania. Again, I've done the calculations multiple times, so that's the state really to watch. If we flip Georgia and Pennsylvania, we win by a slim margin, but we win. If we lose Pennsylvania, we have to basically get a three-state sweep, which is a much harder task to do. As you keep thinking Florida's in play, I don't think it's in play for presidential. I definitely think it's in play for Senate. I think no one's paying attention to that. I do think there are enough Republican opposition to Rick Scott, going back to his years as governor, going back to the gun control bills. He signed two gun control bills during his time as governor, and you have a lot of Second Amendment Republicans who are not happy about that and won't vote for him just for that. He's won every single election by the slimmest of margins. And the last election, the reason he won against Bill Nelson, which was a surprise, I think, for a lot of people, was because he was able to lock down a lot of the Hispanic vote that Bill Nelson didn't really campaign for, which is not
Yeah.
really a big issue for Debbie Mercastle Powell, who herself is Hispanic. And
Yep.
she has been I mean, I see more of her commercials than Rick Scott's commercials. And she has very powerful and very persuasive commercials. So I honestly think I don't think they're going to flip Florida for Harris, but I do think you're going to flip. There's a possibility of retiring Rick Scott and putting a Democrat in the Senate. So I think that's something to be watching.
Well, I absolutely encourage all the two-way Republicans not to vote for Rick Scott. So something that sounds promising for the Democrats. But
Hey,
um,
there's a libertarian running named Fina. Let me figure out her Fina or Fina. She's a military veteran, and the Libertarian Party has sort of purged its woke wing, so they're not super socially liberal. Fina Bonoan. Uh,
fantastic.
yeah, so
If
there
you're
there
mad
is
at
a
Rick Scott
pro
because he
Second
voted for
Amendment
signed
option. I am
some
not, and I want to be
bills into
clear, I
law
am not
about guns, then
endorsing
vote for
FINA.
FINA
Yes, I am
Libertarian
not.
something or another.
I am not endorsing FINA Bonoan, but for those who aren't fans of Rick Scott, she is technically an option for you. If you're looking
Fantastic.
for another option, and you know what, this is anyone, no one's fault but Rick Scott. I mean, Rick was the one who failed conservatives on a lot of issues as governor, and many things weren't as strong as Senate. A lot of people are upset with him over the his constant leadership bids as well. A lot of people just think he's too focused on himself and growing his power, and not
Sure.
really, the state of Florida.
So
Talks a lot about China, which is a big issue internationally, but how does that affect Florida locally?
yeah, I don't know. So the signing the gun bills bad for Republicans, largest Medicare fraud in American history. A okay?
Well, let's be clear. He took over that company after the Medicare. I don't think he was the CEO during the actual crimes, and he was working to clean it up. From my understanding, I don't completely understand those issues of what happened while he was CEO of that company. Um, but the from my understanding, he wasn't involved with the actual criminal activity.
All right. So
That's my comment there.
So okay, so Sean's giving you the analysis, his take on the Senate election here in the state of Florida. I of course, I want Florida to be in play for the presidential. I think with the recent hurricanes, that's kind of taken the wind out of the sails with that, only because you really can't campaign on that. Now, we didn't get the direct hit to Tampa, which would have absolutely taken the any Democratic hopefuls of flipping the state out.
Yeah.
So I think that it's still potentially doable, and but I think less likely than it was ahead of the hurricane. So it'll be interesting. I do still firmly believe that this is ultimately going to be a turnout election.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know the pundits and the news like to give all this, the undecided voters or whatever, and they say that they're about 6%. I would be surprised if they're 6%, to be honest, of actual voters.
I honestly think if they're genuinely undecided at this point, they're not gonna vote.
They're not gonna vote. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess
either, and most of the people who I understand are undecided voters are the Republican voters who are not all in for Trump but can't vote for Harris. That's who I mostly see in the
yes,
what you call the focus groups of the undecided voters. It's mostly anti-Trump Republicans who can't vote for Harris.
But interestingly, on the Democratic side, there are I'd call them soft voters, people who are progressive left Democrats who are still very upset with Gaza, Palestine, and who see Harris as complicit in that, who are not full in on Harris as well, because they see her as a continuation of Biden.
Well, I feel more of those people are probably going to vote Jill Stein or Cornel West. They will actually go out to vote. I genuinely do. I think so, because I think there's enough of them. Well, I think it'd be smart if they did it. It would show their numbers and show their strength, honestly. But
I would actually say that they're probably going to be. It'll be between Harris and the couch for those folks, and this is why, because there are a lot of young folks, and that is usually the decision that younger voters have.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not voting or whoever their candidate is. I don't know if there's going to be enough confidence among people
are antisocial. So there's I'm not going to go out to vote and stand in line with people.
Listen, if you can't do it via TikTok, then you've lost the gen.
Well, if you think we have problems with hacking into our votes now, wait till it's all on TikTok.
Lord. Anyways. So that's kind of where I think we are at the state of Florida. It'll be interesting. So we did see this past week early voting start in Georgia, and it included the largest single day of early voting in the state of Georgia, with around 225,000 people. Yeah. That was a big surprise to me, to be honest, because I feel, and what I've seen and what we saw in the primary election, at least in the state of Florida, was not a lot of enthusiasm for voting. So what did you think about the opening of voting in Georgia?
I think it's great that they had that record turnout. I think, again, all this fear-mongering about the Georgia voting laws and how it was going to make everything difficult, obviously it didn't if they have that record turnout. And thankfully, some of the more ridiculous challenges with the election boards were denied for constitutional reasons. We have a Secretary of State who is a reasonable Republican. I am more confident in the results of the Georgia election than most people are. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue in terms of the so-called electoral suppression. I think what has tried to be done previously has already been done, and what may be done after the fact will be stopped, because again, we have a very strong Secretary of State and a court system that has already acted on this. So, but I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. Plus, I honestly think Trump's going to flip back Georgia, and if he flips back Georgia, then no one's going to want to challenge it anyway. So
So let's talk a little bit about what some of those allegations were. So this was a lawsuit that went through in the state of Georgia after the governing board of the electoral governing board of the state of Georgia said that there needed to be a quote hand count of ballots at every precinct, not the hand count of the results, but a physical count of how many ballots were at each location. And they had to be done either the night of the election or the morning of. And the problem with this, of course, is that
logistics.
People suck at counting and doing things properly, first and foremost. Second of all, the logistics of it is that they had to have at least 3 people count, and those people had to have all the counts be the same, and they're literally just counting the paper ballots kind of thing. And this is going to be seen as particularly punitive for the highly populated areas in places like Atlanta, because they would have a heck of a lot more people come into each precinct. So this was, actually shot down by the Supreme Court in the state of Georgia. And that was seen as, again, an election suppression tactic because it would negatively affect voters in those high traffic precincts in areas like Atlanta, which were most likely to.
It would have drained resources for sure on those areas. And not only that, again, it's a logistical nightmare. And look, I believe having a paper trail is important. Personally, I like the old method that we had here in Florida before we did the machines, where we would have a physical paper ballot where we bubbled in what we wanted. We scanned that. That was the machine that counted. And then you had the paper record for that going, so if there was a challenge to it, they can actually go back and do the hand count then.
That is how we do it.
That is not how we do it now. No, now it is pure machine. Now you go to the machine and you press the button on the machine. Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Yes,
no,
it is. We did it this year. This time, I did not bubble anything in. It was all machine this year, and last cycle too. It's all done on a machine now.
I guess now that I've done vote by mail.
That's why. See, that's what you're thinking.
2 times.
Okay. You're getting the ballot that everyone else has got, that we always used to get. Right, where we would bubble it in, we'd go and they scan it. For the past 2 election cycles, they've had machines where you'd go in and you press your item on the computer.
Okay.
And so that I do not like. That
I will say though that there is a paper copy of that, so they do make a record of you and
yeah,
that
they
vote.
make the paper record. I get that. I understand that. I prefer the older paper ballot method. That's me personally, and that would be a policy change that I would support. But having a hand count for every election, they like to bring up France like it's some miraculous miracle that they did that. Okay, we're not France.
Listen, in Switzerland, you just go to the town square and shout it out. But women also didn't get to vote until 1993.
In Switzerland?
Yeah.
Really? Is that real?
Yeah.
Is that really real?
Look it up.
I have to look that up. That is crazy. You'd think. Switzerland. Wow.
We do have somebody joining us from YouTube. Thanks for joining us, Hirsch, and getting a laugh. And we actually used to film in a bar until the bar that we got we're at closed. So, we're hoping to find a new home at some point so we can actually drink beer and walk into a bar. But until then, we are just doing it online here. So, but yeah, so that's there is definitely a lot of different
definitely keep liking and look at some of our old videos too. Definitely follow those.
Yeah. So we definitely, when we're talking about voting and voter integrity, and this has been a big thing, mostly because Donald Trump likes to talk about it and he thinks it's very favorable to himself, to cause consternation around voting. There's very, very little instances of fraud. We have a very complex system in the United States, but it's actually a very safe system when it comes to voting.
Because it's complex.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, we have thousands of election systems in this country by design because of that right. Complexity and disconnect. You end up making it harder to cheat in a systematic level. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And even though we're talking about the fraud that is recorded, you and I also both know there's fraud that isn't recorded, and we've seen it in our Fort Myers elections races before, and so we know that stuff could happen. Stuff does happen outside of the official.
Are you talking about ballot harvesting?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Which is now illegal in the state of Florida.
Which is now illegal, but also bribing people for their ballots is really what I was referencing, and those allegations there. But those allegations were never investigated. Those allegations were never charged. So those allegations aren't on the record. And so when we look at those that we record and catch, yes, they're very low. But we know from our own experience, from our own knowledge of our local races and what we've had to deal with personally in our races, that it can happen.
But by and large, our system works really well.
Exactly.
Like, it works really well.
The issue isn't the system. The issue isn't the system. The issue is we do have bad actors, and because of whatever reason, those bad actors aren't caught all the time, just like with every other crime. We have this is that's the system. That's the situation. But the system itself is pretty good.
And the one thing that's really interesting, and I will talk about the most recent experience that I had with the school board candidate that I was working for, and all we had to do, by the way, was find 64 votes. Okay, had find 64 votes to move into a recount. Okay. And we literally, I was on the phone with attorneys. I was on the phone with the state. I was on the phone with our local supervisors of elections office. And I'm like, where can we look to challenge votes and things like that and signatures? And they're like, look, we've already done all that. Like, we've already checked the signatures. We've already gone through and looked for voter intent. And then if we think that there was a vote that that was supposed to be counted for a candidate, but that didn't get counted for a candidate, then we give it to the canvassing board and they determine it. So there's actually a lot of
processes
built in the processes already. So that we moved 0 votes, right? Like we moved 0 votes after the official tally was put out because the supervisors of election had already done all of that work and making sure that the voter intent is there, that person's, voter registration is checked and all that kind of stuff. And so there really wasn't anything to examine at the canvassing board because there really wasn't any questions left at that point. That's a very small scale election, right? That was a couple thousand votes.
Yeah.
But
and you needed less than 100 to flip it.
What I'm saying is, like,
election was nuts.
The point is, like, there's really the elections are well run and there's really not much room for error. So, like, you would have to have these really ridiculous amounts of fraud and different stuff going on, and they really just simply cannot happen in the systems that we have.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the sort of widespread fraud that was alleged in 2020, I don't think that a big network of people could do that. Maybe they could. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like something that's entirely plausible given our complex system. I do, of course, think that there are always going to be times in every state that people are going to either skirt by the rules or try to do something unethical or illegal in every state. But I think that those are isolated incidents, not networks of people. And I honestly think if you had like a serious network of election interference, you would have the FBI on it, as they were with stuff like Russia and Iran and their election interference. So this is, election interference is a crime. Trying to do what was alleged is a crime. And I would like to think that our FBI and Justice Department, now mind you, it's iffy sometimes, but generally speaking, I'd like to think they know what the heck they're doing. And that they're following up on these and that they can actually spot these. And as we know that they have when it comes to foreign actors doing this. So
the record is pretty good. So anyways, point being, vote. Please vote. Get ready to vote. You have your vote by mail. You have your early voting. In Lee County, we have 12 precincts that you can vote in, or 12 early voting locations. You can go to any of those early voting locations anytime between 10 and 6 p.m. starting tomorrow, which is tomorrow from here, but the October 21st through November 2nd. Please note that Sunday, November 3rd, and Monday, November 4th are not voting days. Okay. So if you do
Very
not get
important.
into early vote by 6 p.m. on November 2nd, your only option at that point is to vote on election day in your designated precinct. So that's it. That's the tweet.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you did kind
get
of
your.
cut out there, but I'm pretty sure
Oh, I
you
said
kind of
that's
cut
the
out
tweet.
there. But I will say, I will repeat what it sounded like you said, which was basic. From my understanding again, Sunday and Monday you will not be able to vote. So obviously you were saying at that point Tuesday you'll be able to vote, and also of course you were saying about voting for Trump and make sure to vote Republican down ballot.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Do not
what
vote for
about
Trump.
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the amendments? How do you think those are going to go? Because I don't think
So
we've
this will
we've
be
talked about them
interesting.
too often.
Yeah, so the amendments themselves are, there's 6 amendments. Two of them are citizen-led initiatives. That's Amendment 3 and Amendment 4. Amendment 3 is the adult recreational
Yeah,
cannabis.
those are the big ones that everyone's been paying
Right.
attention to.
The other 1, 2, 5, and 6 are all legislative amendments.
Mm.
Largely seen as being put on by the Republican legislature to inspire Republican voters to vote all the way down the ballot, right? Because the other
Mhm.
part of it is the technicality of it, that the amendments are the very last thing that you vote on, right?
Yeah.
So it's president and then federal, down, 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 and then the amendments are the end. So you're
I
going
mean,
to
you could
see
always just skip through boxes if you really wanted to, but anyway.
sure, but most the way that voters behave typically is that you don't have you have a lot of undervotes. Essentially, a lot of people will not finish the ballot. So I think what you're ultimately going to get is you're going to get a lot of people who are highly motivated and highly informed who are going to vote on the amendments. I personally am yes on 3, yes on 4, no on all the rest. I
Mm.
think that you are also going to see, I think both 3 and 4, by the way, will pass the 60% threshold to become part of the
Really?
Constitution. I do.
Mm.
Most of the polling shows us like that as well. I think
I
also
definitely think
Amendment
3 will.
2 and
I
5.
I definitely think 3 will pass. I don't know. I think 4 is going to get really close. Like I can see 4 getting 58 to 59% and just being shy of the 60% margin.
Hmm.
That's where I see that go, and that's honestly more hope than anything else. As I am definitely no one for. I'm pretty sure I'm yes on all of the other ones. I'm still mulling the homestead tax exemption, just because I know how it'll affect local funding, and as someone who's
Right.
big on local politics and local issues, I don't know how I'm like I'm still leaning yes on the amendment, but I'm not all the way there yet. Um,
Amendment
amendment,
5 is a homestead exemption that will move with inflation. And
and
yes,
I'm
the
still
criticism
also
of it is that it's going
debating,
to take away funds from municipalities.
and I'm still debating the partisan school board as well. I'm probably going to vote yes on that. I'm more closer to
Amendment
yes,
1.
and yeah, I'm closer to yes on that one than the other one. But I think that there's some negatives to it. I just think it just promotes dumb voters. I want our voters, I want all of you who are watching to research your candidates on both sides of the aisle, and I think it limits. You create a partisan race, it limits who can actually vote in that race. And we've had area times
Ultimately.
as Republicans, where we've had 2 Republicans coming out of those primaries. And so for me, I actually think it benefits the Republican Party because we have the opportunity, if we have enough Republicans running, to get more Republican, create a situation where it's only Republicans in a race. So I think it hurts Republicans more than it helps Republicans. I think that the reason Republicans want it is because many of them think that voters are dumb and they want to vote for the party, but you can't see the party on the school board, so they're not going to vote for who, they're not going to vote on that. But I actually believe, probably I'm alone on this, but that voters need to do their own research on that. And I think the other issue, I think what the Republicans have been saying essentially is that you do have Democrats who run in those nonpartisan race and act like conservatives. So how would you be able to distinguish from an actual Republican and non-Republican? What you're going to happen? What's going to end up happening there if we end up making it a partisan race? Is to just have Democrats switch parties, which we've seen happen before. So that was a bit of a ramble on that. I apologize.
So that's Amendment 1. Amendment 1 is partisan school board races. I am a no on that because I just don't think that we need more politics in the school board. Democrats think that this is an advantage for them to keep it as partisan because Democrats win on policy. So unless they're in areas like here in Southwest Florida, Democrats can win nonpartisan races because they are not tied to the harmful vitriolic, rhetoric on the partisan sides.
And anyways, in areas like Broward, in areas like Orange County and Tampa, you can have Republicans actually win school board races in those races because they don't have the R next to their name.
Right. Yeah. So it makes it more based on policy and personality and candidate quality versus party. So, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if people are going to kind of vote on that. I think that one will not pass.
You don't think,
to be honest?
Yeah.
Because I don't think people are really excited to have more partisan politics in their face. To be honest. I don't know.
I think that'll if that goes badly, if that's even under 50%, that'll definitely be a sign that partisan politics is not favored amongst the general electorate, which is why we have shows like this, talking bipartisanly. That's not a word, but we'll just make it a word for right now.
So Amendment 2 is the right to hunt and fish. I'm no on that because it is widely seen amongst environmental activists as a way to skirt around federal legislation like the Endangered Species Act and can result in negative effects on endangered populations, as well as destabilizing other non-endangered but vital animal populations in the state of Florida. Plus, the argument is that we already have the right to hunt and fish.
Yeah, it does seem like a redundant amendment, sort of a reactionary amendment. I'm still probably going to vote yes on that because I'm always for more rights, not less rights in general. I think that's just the libertarian way. We always prefer it if you have more rights than less rights. But I did wonder, okay, is this a universal right? What's the actual wording of the amendment? What do you have the right to hunt and what do you have the right to fish? And, is it right to hunt anything? Is it right, or is there limits on what you can hunt? Are there seasonal limits? And if we're hunting anything, man is the most dangerous game. I'm just saying, we're getting into dangerous territory if it's not clearly defined what you can hunt. I'm just saying.
So it's really rather short. Just says the right to hunt and fish. Propose an amendment to the state constitution to preserve forever fishing and hunting, including by the use of traditional methods, as a public right and preferred means of responsibly managing and controlling fish and wildlife. Specifies that the amendment does not limit the authority granted to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Committee under Section 9, Article 4 of the state constitution. So it's pretty wide open. I will say that I do think this will pass. And part of the reason is because it's kind of wide open and it seems like, okay, hunt and fish, not a big deal. And there is a lot of support for that amendment by the tribes in the state of Florida because there is the nod to traditional methods.
Yes. We all know how much power the freaking tribes have. I'm sorry.
They can in certain areas.
I had a bad experience with them during that casino campaign. I'm just like, they are some dirty campaigners. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not the biggest fan of the Seminole Tribe's political power here in Florida. It is way too much political power. But
but now we have FanDuel and
steal
stuff
their land.
So yeah, that's so.
No, we don't. We have Hard Rock Bets because that's the reason they were trying to stop that amendment from getting on the ballot. They're trying to prevent it from happening, so that way they can have a monopoly on it.
Oh yeah, I don't gamble, so it doesn't.
Yeah, it didn't affect me, but I was working on that campaign professionally with our good friend Crystal, and the nastiness and the aggressiveness they committed illegal activities in order to prevent us from doing our jobs. All right,
Wow.
they did not care. All right,
Dang.
but no one wants to challenge them because they have a lot of political power. They just do. It's one of those things. It's an elite organization of very powerful, rich Native Americans. And let's be real. I'll admit that we took it from them. We snatched it right up. Andrew Jackson came in. Ours now. Okay, so they got their consolation prize, but they shouldn't have this much power. They have more power than Disney now and then. Honestly, Disney had less power than them when they had all the power that they had. So but no one wants to challenge the power of the tribes.
I am always against big money in politics and elite people who flex their might with that power. So anyway, the last amendment that we didn't talk about, the sixth amendment on the Constitution on the ballot, is the removal of the state matching for the campaigns, and this is because the Republicans don't use it, but Democrats do. Democrats, and it's only it's matching of up to like $350,000 by the state to candidates who are running statewide that meet that financial fundraising threshold, and it's only governor and ag commissioner and stuff like that. So
I'm going to be voting yes on that amendment. I just in general don't think taxpayer dollars should be going to candidates, period. It's just, that's my money. I don't want it going to help elect someone. That is a government overreach, in my opinion. That's basically politicians saying, we're going to use your money to help us run our campaigns. That's bullcrap. So I don't care if it benefits Democrats or if it benefited Republicans. If Republicans,
it used to benefit Republicans. It's one of the reasons that they got into power previously.
Yeah,
because it makes the party that's out of power a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but again,
I don't know if it's going to pass or not. Maybe there's enough people that feel like you do.
I don't want my money going to a politician, and you should feel the same way too. How would you feel if your tax dollars went to some crazy Republican out of what if your tax dollars went to Matt Gaetz running for governor?
I mean, listen, there's a part of me that finds actually totally structured government funding for campaigns very attractive. Let me put it that way.
Of course. Yeah.
This is what Britain does, by the way. There's a strict time period.
Britain. I like what Britain does too, but Britain does it different. It's not like they give the money for them to do stuff. They give them a set amount of airtime that they're allowed to use.
Right. And it's so it's like 30 days or something. So I mean, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings. I have a lot of feelings about a lot of things. On this one, I'm just kind of like, But if that's how I think, because that will be the last amendment
if it benefits you guys
on the ballot. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to vote no. Yeah, just because of that. But it's also the last ballot on the last amendment on the ballot, last thing on the ballot. You're going to see the most undervotes, which is where people are just going to leave it blank. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think my call. So my scoreboard is, I think 2 is likely to pass, 3, 4, and 5. That's my scoreboard. Potential.
I think you can see 1 and 2 passing. 3 I think definitely is going to pass. 4 is going to be close, but I think it's going to fail by a few percentage points.
Now, on that note, they just raised like $17.4 million for a statewide ad campaign coming out here. So they're coming out of the gates.
From people all over the country, and probably not from Florida.
40,000 people, donors across the country. Yeah, but it's a significant amount of money to
For
come in,
sure.
where
We're gonna be
I will say that the no, I don't think the no on four campaign has been as much. Now, what we have seen in the state of Florida is we have seen state intervention on this. So we know that
yeah.
the Supreme Court of Florida, I believe, basically just told Ron DeSantis that like it's the First
It's the
Amendment.
First Amendment, bitch. Yes,
Yeah, so
it
like
is,
you
and I
can't
agree with them.
tell
You
news
can't,
stations not to run the ads.
for sure.
Lapido was involved in that as well,
And
and
look,
there's been state entities that have been doing kind of parallel advertising as well as a website
yeah,
to go against
sort of dismiss.
four.
Yeah, they're trying to dismiss these ideas that are deceptive ideas that you're putting in the ads about that they're putting in the ads about the mother's life not being affected and using these horror stories. And so the health department's pushing back on those. But regardless of whether or not they're lies, the freedom of speech stands. And the same thing's happening to the Republicans. They're being challenged on deceptive advertisements for Amendment 3, and the same thing applies. Even though they're deceptive, the First Amendment gives the freedom of speech. So people can put whatever they want in their advertisement. It doesn't have to be true. Now we can call it out for not being true, but it doesn't have to be true.
Now, there's
But
also been statewide stuff that is, I call it like parallel, right? So there's these, ad campaigns with sheriffs that are like, oh, marijuana smoking is bad for your kids and driving under the influence. And it's not like saying, oh, don't vote on Amendment 3, but it's definitely putting into your mind that marijuana is
because
bad and
they're
has
going
all
to
this bad
smoke,
stuff.
even though the Amendment 3 prohibits children from smoking marijuana. And then you also have there's an advertisement I'm seeing with the Bradford County Sheriff, a Republican sheriff, supporting it. You had Joe Gruters, who's a big Trump supporter, supporting it. There's advertisements now of Trump endorsing it. I just
Oh,
saw an
really?
advertisement the other day. It says President Trump is voting for Amendment 3, and his words on it and everything, and I'm like, yes, yes. I
Who
was like,
knows?
so excited for that because it gives Republicans permission. It gives Republicans permission to be pro pot. Speaking of,
So there is a bipartisan flair to that. So there
there's
are
a
ads with
bipartisan.
Reuters and Chev Jones. So it'll be interesting. I've not seen the Trump stuff. I know DeSantis has come out against it. I know that I don't know.
I know our good friend Senator Jonathan Martin had come out against it, which pisses me off because he'd always given me libertarian vibes, but he basically towed the party line on this one. But it's okay, that's his opinion.
I think he does what he's told.
No comment on that.
Oh, anyway, good old jam.
Yeah, you can't pass legislation if you don't fall in line with the party leadership. Let's just be real. If you have
Correct.
a strong record of getting things done, there's a reason for that. It's because we have a very top heavy organization on both legislative bodies. Yeah, go ahead.
He doesn't have a very good track record of getting things done recently, though, because some of the most major things that he put forth in the last session got hammered down, especially the one about the Confederate monument, where he brought a bunch of white supremacists into the hearing, and it was summarily killed because it was so abundantly clear that it was to appease white supremacists.
That was one of those legislations where I was like, okay, that's not. Why are you doing that one? Why are you?
And as much as I thought it was stupid to say, like, okay, you're gonna prohibit municipalities and stuff from taking down Confederate monuments, the scariest part of that piece of legislation was that it allowed the governor to remove any elected municipal officer who even tried to do to remove any of these Confederate monuments, which for me was a huge overreach and totally against home rule.
I think, both of us are very home rule, pro localization.
Right.
The best government is the government that runs closest to you. I think that has been for the longest time a conservative principle, but we do see Republicans in state office in the state legislature take an approach of big state government, little local government. Which I find it contrary to traditional conservative beliefs, but it could be argued it's conservative in certain ways. from
No,
another
it's consistent with money in the bank
it's
and getting
well,
elected.
conservative.
That's what that's about.
There is a history of conservatism and centralization of power as well. But I
Yeah,
think
that's called
random,
fascism.
yeah,
But
that is the ultimate end of
that is
such
the ultimate
centralization,
centralization of power on the right.
which is again why I am a big proponent of decentralization, of the
Same.
principle of subsidiary, of letting the local government have the authority to do what they can. Most of the time, when Republicans do this, they say it's a individual protection of rights, but again, I think some of these are just overreach and not allowing local
Yeah.
communities from addressing the problems that are affecting their communities specifically.
Well, and so many of them were directly tied to industry, right? Directly tied to industry. And the
Mhm.
cruise lines
Yeah,
upending
like the Uber
the
and Airbnb
ban
ones.
from Key West and stuff like that. Um so that always really displeased me. It wasn't just like, oh, we're trying to protect everybody. It's like you're trying to protect industries that are paying into the bank accounts of
Corporations.
politicians.
I mean, the big one here in Cape Coral was Airbnb. We know the city really wants to regulate short-term rental housing because it's become an issue in our community. But Airbnb and house sharing organizations were like, no. They lobbied the state legislature, donated a bunch of money, and Airbnb beat out the local government. And so now all these people will complain about these residential areas, and the city council has to go. That's not go to speak to Mike Lombardo, speak to Jonathan Martin. These are the people who are responsible for taking away Cape Coral's ability to regulate their Airbnbs. And they argue it's a property rights issue, which is a fair argument, I think, to make.
Yep.
If it's your
Mhm.
property, you should have the right to do with it what you want.
Right.
But when does the line come between the right to property and the right to a good quality of life? What about the rights of the community around you? You can't use your rights to infringe on another person's rights.
Right. And this should be handled at the municipal level.
Yeah, it really should be a local issue.
Yep. So yeah. All right. Well, I think we did a good job going through the amendments this time, getting ready for voting. Any last issues before we close out for today?
I wanna. Did you, by any chance, see Donald Trump at the Al Smith dinner? Did you watch any of that?
At the dinner? No, I did see quite a lot of footage from his dance fest on
I did not see that.
Univision.
I have
Oh, you
not seen
didn't? You
that
didn't
one.
see his 40
I
minute
saw
dance
some.
fest with
Oh
Kristi
yeah,
Noem?
yes, yes, I did see that. Okay, yes, I did hear about that and see some of that where he just stopped asking questions and just went on a dancing spree for 20 minutes. That was the first time
40 minutes.
yeah, 40 minutes. And I genuinely thought that was the first time seeing that I genuinely thought, okay, he may have some cognitive problems. Like this is Joe Biden level of
Honestly, I
problem.
saw the best part of all of that. The best part of all of it. I mean, aside from like the double,
Yeah, double
dildo dance that he does, which is always hilarious to me. The best part was watching Kristi Noem by all that, right? Because like at first, she's like, "Yes, Mr. President, you're so awesome." Then she's like, "What in the fuck is happening?" It just kept like going on, and she's like, "Are we gonna do questions anymore?" And just like her face was just
yeah.
it was great. And even like the other people in the background at first, because at first they're like, "Yay!" And then it's like, "Oh, we're gonna listen to Ave Maria again."
But this
Oh,
time with the words, I'm like, no. Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's. I wish he knew how to campaign better, and the Al Smith dinner is another perfect example. I only caught the tail end of it, but what I caught was so devastating and heartbreaking for me because this was an easy win for him if he did it right. So, for those that don't know what the Al Smith dinner is, it has been going on since 1945. It is a tradition in New York. It's run by the Archbishop of New York. It's a Catholic charity, and it's basically a roast. you have the two major candidates for president roasting each other. And in 2016, right before the presidential election, you had Hillary and Trump roasting each other. It was tasteful, it was funny, and it really, humanized both of them in a campaign that was very, very toxic. And it was a brilliant opportunity to see these candidates in a different light. Kamala Harris decided not to do this, not to do the Al Smith dinner. Trump did. Trump had the thing all to himself. All he had, it was his thing. He should have gone in there and told jokes. That's what you do at the Al Smith dinner. What you don't do is do an hour-long, boring campaign speech cursing out everyone. You don't do that. You don't. It was so absurd and ridiculous, and he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. He held the entire freaking night. He could have done what he did last time and been funny and showed.
Could just been like this.
Not even that. Like, make actual jokes, lighthearted jokes, levity. Show that you're not this monster that everyone's making you out to be. But it was just another one of his cookie cutter, weave all over the place speeches. And it's just like, why? Why even in like the easiest of moments can you not campaign right? It's one of those things, as a Republican, it gets so frustrating where he is his own worst enemy. This is why I didn't want him as the nominee. He just keeps shooting himself in the foot, regardless of all the people around him doing what they're doing. Kamala Harris is actually campaigning, going out there doing interviews with Bret Baier, challenging interviews, media interviews, podcasts. So is Trump, but like substantively, what they're saying is different. I can actually understand what Kamala Harris is talking about policy-wise. I disagree with it, but I can understand what she's talking about. Trump is all over the place, and it's just like, why are you like this type of thing? So it's been a frustration for me. That the 40-minute of dance along is really got me concerned. On that, on the brain side. I think he needs to take another cognitive test, but that's just me. And to me, it's frustrating that he can't campaign properly. It's just like, this is our even with the switcheroo. Okay. I still think on economy and the border, everyone agrees that Trump is stronger on that than Harris. If he campaigns smart and then he keeps shooting himself in the foot, we could win this race in a landslide, as Hirsch for real says. I think if we win, we're going to win by really only flipping Pennsylvania and Georgia and getting like a 270, 268. I think it's going to be close if we win. But I think if we lose, it's going to be because Trump is a crappy campaigner and he has dropped the ball. And over these last few weeks, it's like he's unintelligible. He's all over the place with his little weave. And in the simplest areas where he can win, he can't just stop being himself for one freaking moment. So many politicians are good at pretending to be someone else. Kamala Harris has tried 3 different accents already. All right, Trump can't pretend to just be an adult. Anyway,
always sounds exactly the same. Anyway, so you think that the Coachella abandoning all the people out at Coachella is going to hurt him?
Yeah, all those California voters, I think, are probably not going to vote for him in California. I don't think we're going to win California now, guys. I'm sorry. I know it seemed like we were in the bag when he announced the Coachella thing. I was like, this is what's going to turn it around. We're going to flip California after 40 years.
What I did hear a good piece of analysis on this, because a lot of people were like, what the heck? But it's strategic in terms of making sure that you're trying to get your opponent to fight you everywhere, right? Trump did not want the Democrats and Kamala Harris to think that California is just skewing.
I have a similar theory, which is that you're campaigning in those areas to begin putting a foothold on those areas to show that, for example, when he was campaigning in the Bronx, it was symbolic, not just that he was campaigning in the Bronx, but he's willing to go to those areas. And it's starting to build that foothold for Republicans to make headways in. Same in California. I think it may not help him, but you may have some California candidates down ballot who it may help, or it might help boost.
Probably not leaving them in the desert, though.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, that's a logistical nightmare that the campaign should have thought of and did not properly prepare for. You got to take care of your volunteers, your supporters, and all of that. If you're going to take them all to that thing, you can't just abandon them. So I'm sure I don't know who was running that campaign, but on that area, but whoever is running the operation there needs to be fired. That was the disaster.
I'm sure it's only the best people, Sean.
Only the best. I are the best people. Oh, I think he outsources most of his campaign stuff now.
I don't think he gives a shit at all. That's just me.
Yeah, anyway.
So, all right. So good. So that's where we are. Everybody else, get ready to vote. There'll be more to come. We will be with you through the last couple of weeks of the election here. I do want to give one small pitch because Big Mouth Media is the media sponsor for upcoming Hurricane Milton relief concert on Tuesday, October 22nd. That is going to be featuring country music star Trey Taylor. He's flying down here from Nashville to help us raise some funds and to bring some joy to our community through what he calls the Concert for Unity. So everybody's invited to come. $20 gets you in. It's going to be at Millennial Brewery in downtown Fort Myers from 6:30 p.m. And for a $100 donation, you get into the VIP meet and greet and special private session with Trey Taylor after the show as well. So that is going to be coming up October 22nd. Should be a great time. He's a dynamic young man. He's sponsored by Dolly Parton. He's signed onto her label. So he's a young man. He's only 25 years old, up and coming artist, but definitely somebody that's going to have a great show for us here in Fort Myers. So hope to see everybody.
I'm going to try to go there that day.
Yes. Concert for Unity. So bringing people together again and trying to provide additional aid. What we are planning to do is with the funds that we raise for Hurricane Milton, we're going to be going up to Pinellas County and helping with the people who had been really significantly affected by both Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, and providing direct grants to people who have otherwise fallen through the cracks in the system.
Perfect. Glad to see we're helping out that organization and sponsoring that. So I'm definitely going to work my way up there. You said 6:30 on Tuesday?
6:30 it'll start. That's right.
Give me
and Millennial Brewery, and they'll have a food truck, and they have the beer, so you can come get something to drink, get something to eat, and have a great time, and come together as a community after we've been through so much. And unity leading into the last couple of weeks of the campaign will be a good thing as well.
Yes, agreed. Well, this has been a Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar. I have been your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
And I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai. And thanks so much for joining us here. If you enjoyed this show, we'd love to have you subscribe at bigmouthmediafl.com on our plans and pricing page. It helps us keep doing this work. And thanks so much. If you're listening to this on podcast afterwards, this will be available wherever you get your podcasts. But if you are not subscribed to us, please help us out as you're listening to like our page, leave a review, and subscribe and share it with your network as well. That will help us reach more people as well. Thanks once again, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.